Welcome back to The Wow Factor. I'm your host, Dr. Mark Mann. This episode of The Wow Factor explores the industrial heartbeat of the Midwest, bridging the gap between the tri-state area of Indiana and the gateway to the West. Evansville, Indiana, and St. Louis, Missouri are two of the most resilient markets in the Midwest. From the massive automotive production lines at Toyota in Evansville to the aerospace and brewing giants in St. Louis, these cities are the gears that keep the regional economy turning. Now, we're seeing a fascinating shift where companies are right-sizing their footprints. They're moving away from massive fixed leases and toward a more agile and mobile solution. The St. Louis market is currently recalibrating with a vacancy rate of 5.4%. And the team in Evansville has recently achieved milestone utilization, demonstrating the intense demand for flexible storage in these manufacturing hubs. Today's guest oversees a critical territory that supports global manufacturing giants like Toyota and Boeing. Joining me to talk about managing space across state lines is Brian Cain, the general manager for Meisler Trailer Rentals in Evansville and St. Louis. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hello, Mark.
So, Brian, we're going to dive into the market dynamics, but first we're going to start with you. You've been with the team for 6 or 7 years now. How did you first find your way into this world of warehouses and yards and the rapid-fire logistics of the tri-state area?
I've been basically in the trucking and logistics world for about 30 years now, almost. Started as a mechanic, worked my way up, helping out customers along the way, finding solutions, and then help with their challenges.
Yeah, so your whole career, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you manage operations in both Indiana and Missouri. So between the Vanderburg Industrial Park and the busy docks of, Earth City or Metro East, what does a normal week look like for you?
Well, let's start with, let's define a normal week. I don't think we know what normal is. But, I have a team of 30 people, constantly shifting needs for my customers. My day ranges from working with my staff over different challenges, coordinating dispatch with the drivers to make sure things get delivered on time, and working closely with my customers to help them with space restrictions. Whenever a customer faces an issue, it's rarely at a convenient time for any of us. So I have to stay pretty flexible and ready to pivot to do whatever needs to be done.
Yeah, you guys got a big shop there too, so I'm sure it's important to stay nimble. Now, St. Louis is currently in a stabilization phase, kind of like I mentioned in the intro. Vacancy rates have climbed, slightly as tenants are consolidating their footprints. Is that right?
True, yes.
So when you look at the Evansville and St. Louis markets, then what are the three biggest space headaches that your customers are bringing to you again and again?
Yeah. Basically three things is that, space is always kind of with manufacturing. So if something happens in their manufacturing process or stuff, their incoming products will pile up and space becomes eliminated pretty quick. Another one is usually a safety matter, whether it's an internal audit that they do, or a fire marshal comes in and they got different things blocked, and they're calling for some help. The third thing is basically kind of what you just said, consolidation of other facilities. And then the people in the warehouses just have nowhere to put it. And so then we come in to help out with that.
Yeah, and I've heard stories from some of the other guests about fire marshals coming in and shutting down until you can get the space cleared and these aisles cleared. We're going to shut you down. Tell me about a recent week in one of your markets, maybe supporting the plastics expansion there in Evansville or the automotive suppliers in Wentzville, that really shows what happens when space gets tight and the yard starts to back up.
No, Urban, absolutely. One of our plastics customers was doing a large expansion. And then with this, they had construction companies, contractors, I mean, all kinds of different people with various projects and everything that they're that they are trying to do. So we were able to put containers on site to be able to help with the construction materials and anything that they needed to store there. Along with that, inside the building where they were doing the expansion, there's a lot of machines, products, and different kind of storage stuff that they had there. And we were able to put trailers in there, get a lot of their stuff loaded on there, and we put it to an off-site parking lot. So then it just wasn't in their way, and it let everybody work a lot more freer, have some more space, be able to move around, and be able to be a lot more efficient.
Yeah, efficient and effective. I know, especially when we talk about plastics, those Gaylords full of those plastic beads are heavy too, yes. Right? There's a limit on what you can put on a trailer.
Yes, and they test that every day.
Absolutely. So one of the goals of this podcast is to start moving our listeners from thinking about mobile storage as a short-term Band-Aid and start moving them towards thinking about long-term strategy, because a lot of leaders, they see storage still as a temporary fix for a messy yard, and it's way more than that. So tell me about an Indiana or Missouri customer where that thinking changed and they started to treat mobile storage as a core part of their just-in-time plan for the next 5 years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we got a distribution customer that does your outdoor play equipment, kind of your bigger jungle gyms or basketball goals or soccer goals or just anything outside. And as you can imagine, it's very seasonal. They have high points and low points and stuff like that. So then how they've utilized us is that when they start bulking up and they get that big order coming in, they'll basically order their year's worth of supplies and store it all on trailers and store it off-site at one of our parking lots. And then throughout their peak demand, we will work with them and get them their trailers, and they'll unload product and they'll still keep their operation going. And hence they have never changed buildings or got a bigger warehouse because this year is going to be bigger than last year was smaller. Like, we can flex with that. And they've really utilized that a lot.
Yeah, so it almost sounds like you have a calendar already. There's a strategy in place where when they're going to be busy, and they've already communicated that to you, and you already know what's going to be going to their location. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
great. So industrial rents now in St. Louis have kind of held steady at around $6.22 a square foot, something like that. Walk me through a time when a customer was ready to sign one of these big, expensive, shiny warehouse leases, and you help them compare that to the cost savings of mobile storage instead.
Yeah, no, Mark, that's a great point. So on top of that $6.22 per square foot of a warehouse, don't forget that these warehouses are all triple net leases. That's basically to where you don't have just your normal lease. You also have building maintenance and property taxes and parking lot lighting and just every single thing that goes into this, not to mention your overhead, your employees, your security, your internet, everything that goes along with that can really drive it all up. So we were working with an HVAC company that manufactures the big condensers and AC units and heat units that you would have for different buildings. Um, and then, keep in mind that that $6.22, there's also that 5% vacancy rate. So there's very little available space. So you're looking at building something, which also takes a lot more time. So, with that, so then what we can do is now with a trailer, you sign a 30-day agreement. We can flex it as your needs go. You don't have all these overheads, all this square footage that you're just not using half of the year. And, and you have to sign a 10-year lease or maybe sometimes even longer. So, we're able to be as flexible as possible, and your building can be, let's go crazy with 1,000,000 square foot or 450 square foot. It can be as big or little as you need it.
Yeah, and month to month, that's the greatest thing, right? No contract. I mean, come on, it's a no-brainer.
Oh, absolutely.
So in these markets, whether it's a surge in retail orders or a production shift at a major plant, things can break down quickly. Tell me about one of those hair on fire moments where maybe a supplier, at the Toyota plant or a retail customer in St. Louis that suddenly realized they had zero room for inbound materials. We need Meisler right now.
Well, so one of my more wilder stories, let's just say it's, that hair on fire. So, Toyota calls me, um, you know, in the evening after work. It's like 7, 8 o'clock at night. And, and then they were moving a big stamp die to stamp out the sides of vehicles. And for whatever reason, it fell and the whole die broke in half. Well, that pretty well shuts down the entire plant. Um, and and then also Toyota has perfected the just-in-time approach. So then they have inbound materials coming in constantly. Well, this shut the plant down for about a week or so. So, so with that instantly shutting down with no time, to prepare or anything like this, all of their suppliers and all the overseas freight doesn't have a time to stop. They can't stop. It's all on the way. So stuff was coming in. So we quickly, I dropped everything I was doing, between 8 o'clock at night. I'm heading to the plant where there's a big meeting. We're all getting involved, and they've got all this freight coming in. So I start getting trailers delivered. We start holding all the excess material and stuff, and then with this, we have domestic and foreign freight. So the domestic stuff, we have a little more flexibility, and we can keep it on our lot to help out while utilizing as much space as possible for all the foreign freight, because there's different rules and handling with all that stuff. So, and as you can imagine, it was pretty wild. So we definitely, it was a week to remember.
Yeah. So what changes for that customer's efficiency and their blood pressure in the first 48 hours after your team lands the equipment on their lot? What changes for them?
Oh, it was definitely release. The fact that they could relax with all the incoming stuff and knew that it was getting taken care of, they could really focus on the most critical need, that they had to do to get them back up and running.
So in those calls, what separates the customers who recover and grow from the ones who kind of stay stuck in that cycle of fighting the same problems every month? Is it strategy?
Strategy, and then understanding that they're not alone in this, that they're not alone in this. The customers that we work the best with are the customers that really let us in to help them out. Whenever they have an issue, they know that we can step in and help out, and it just relieves them of that pressure to be able to focus on between different things.
Yeah, it's a real partnership. So let's stay on that topic. Let's talk about the people on the ground. I'm sure there are warehouse managers or logistics supervisors that you've really built a good relationship with. Think about your favorite warehouse manager customer. How does having 50 or 100 Meisler trailers quietly make that person's day safer and more productive when the docks are full?
Yeah. So, we have a large customer that obviously likes to run lean. They want to try to run with as few as possible, try to maximize efficiency everywhere that they can. Well, you can imagine for the warehouse manager that it can get tight and a little, boots on the ground thing, it gets a little dicey. Me and him has become, really good friends. So whenever he gets tight, he knows that we have a bulk of trailers just sitting, waiting for him. So then I'll get a call, or sometimes I just get a text like, "Hey, Brian, I need some help. I need some trailers. Get over here now." So, I'm able to get him trailers right now, and then, he feels safe that I'm going to be there, and then we're going to provide for him.
Yeah, one thing I have heard about you is that you're in the field a lot. You are with your customers when you can be. Has there ever been a time where you've been at a customer's place of business and you've even had maybe a forklift driver or a yard supervisor who's just kind of said something to you like, "Man, Brian, these trailers have completely changed how we manage our inbound flow"?
Yeah. So I was there, and so I was at the, I was there talking to the guys, talking to the manager, and had a couple warehouse guys coming up. And this was right after one of those text messages, like, "Hey, I need some trailers," and I got them over there. I had one of the floor guys come over and say, "Hey, thanks for bringing all those trailers." Like, he was super excited. He's just like, "I was starting to back up and didn't know what was going on. I didn't realize that he called you and asked for trailers yet anyway, because I was head down in the moment going for it." And he was just like super thankful that all of a sudden Meisler trailers were coming in, and he had that relief. It was nice.
That's great. So let's take off your GM hat for a second and put on your CFO hat. All right, let's get into the whiteboard math of all this. You mentioned all the things that come along with a warehouse lease. The overtime, the utilities, security, all of those extras. Without naming names, tell me about a customer who saw a clear financial impact on their overtime or even demurrage costs by switching to a drop trailer model.
Yeah. So, the demurrage thing, you bring that up. That is usually, if a customer is challenged with that, that is one of the easiest whiteboards that we can really pull out. Because the average demurrage fee for the stuff for the customers that we help out, it's in the realm of like $200 a day. So as you can imagine, that really jacks up a price pretty quick. So whenever we can offer you a trailer that basically our month rental or rental fee is basically a day or so, it's really a no brainer. He's able to offload that overseas container and put it onto our trailer, and then get that container and send it, and then you send it back to the port quickly, and to where he doesn't have all these other fees. That there really helps out. And then that, or between that's quick. I mean, and that's real black and white.
Yeah, I mean, $200 a day. For $200, you can get a 450 square foot dry van and a box of, Dunkin' Donuts
Absolutely.
for that. So for the month.
Yeah.
So that's a big savings. So if a supply chain VP, let's say, asks for a simple way to compare a St. Louis warehouse lease to a mobile storage plan, how would you walk them through those hidden savings?
Yeah. So real quick, just like basically off the top, a warehouse we were saying is your $6.22 a square foot. whenever we put a trailer with 450 square foot and we're renting our trailer at approximately $3 a square foot. So you got a 50% savings just on building to the trailer. That doesn't include for the building all the extra hidden costs that I was talking about, all the people and internet, utilities, and all that other stuff. It doesn't even put into that factor. I need a forklift driver to put it on the trailer, and that's it.
That's it. Easy. It like I said, it's a no-brainer. So let's give our listeners that Midwest playbook. If a warehouse manager in Evansville or St. Louis is out of space and out of budget today, what is the first step that you would tell them to take before they call you?
Yeah. So every day is a firefight. It's real. It's challenging. There is this scenario, all the time. So, what I would tell them is, I always like the detach, kind of mentality, basically stand up, look around and evaluate. So let's figure out, what our challenges, what are the restrictions, what are the options, and list all those things out and figure out what we can do to make things happen. But, you always need to understand what's your end goal, what's the main thing, because I always like to say to keep the main thing, and then you don't tend to get down the rabbit hole. So I would understand the main thing, figure out what your options are, and we can go from there.
So what simple yard or dock changes have you seen your best customers make once they start using trailers that other customers maybe should start copying immediately?
Yeah. Organization. Lot organization is key. To have your certain product in certain places, having empty trailers where empty trailers are supposed to be, having full trailers where they're supposed to be, just kind of have everything in its place. And that truly helps efficiency. It helps you run, it just helps you operate smoother. The yard truck guys knows where everything is. Your dock worker's not sitting around waiting for the yard guy to dig out whatever trailer he needs to go. The more organized that you can make it, definitely the better the life will be.
Absolutely. So a lot of your customers are industrial suppliers or retail, but as you know, these 450 square foot boxes can be used for almost anything. What would you say is the most strange or unusual case or use case for our trailers in your market?
So this is a pretty funny one. I've never, I get surprised every day in this stuff. But so then, the retail space. So I was not ready for this. And then I was working with a customer and they popped open a door to unload it. And I look in there and there is a whole mountain of little eyeballs looking at me. It's all mannequins. So it was a retail store, one of the big anchor stores on the mall. Well, for whatever reason, they put all the mannequins in one trailer, and it's not like they were new. So they wasn't break down in a box. They're all standing there, full pose, looking, just looking real happy. And I was just kind of taken by on that one. That has to be about the strangest thing I've ever seen in a trailer.
And a little bit creepy.
Yeah,
right?
It was.
That's funny. So I've heard stories from your colleagues who've told me that they've been able to save customers millions of dollars a year by offering, a couple hundred dry vans for storage instead of that big shiny warehouse space. What's the best problem solving or cost saving story in your market?
Yeah. So back to one of my original stories with the outdoor plate equipment people. With the way that they flex their seasonal demand, they haven't moved buildings. And I remember this company being here whenever I was a kid at the same address, same location, and they've never added on. They've been using this model with a Meisler for years. and we saved them basically millions of dollars. We doubled the size of their warehouse every year. So basically, if they had to build a whole nother warehouse the same size, but they never had. And they've been able to utilize this even in let's just say a downturn economy where they don't need as much space, or that year that everything blows up and everybody gets a new trampoline. It really helps out.
That's great. All right, Brian, it's time for the signature round. Going to get personal here. So let's start with you, not the title. What was the moment where you thought to yourself, yeah, this is my world. Warehouses, yards, trailers, the Midwest hustle.
Yeah. So me personally, by nature, I am a out of the box thinker. I will tend to look at a challenge, and I come up with kind of your not common ideas because we all have restrictions and budgets and space and all this other things. So, that is really what excites me. I'll come up with your not so common solutions, and people just look at me like I just solved a riddle that they've been working with for years. And that really brings me excitement and makes me feel valuable. And that's really just kind of what I live for, I guess.
Yeah, as I interview you guys, I'm finding out you are all really great problem solvers. It's amazing. So when you get home and shut down for the night, what pulls you away from this world of storage and freight and space? What do you do to reset, and how does that help you show up the next week for your team?
Yeah. So outside of work, I mean, basically it's family, sports, and scouts. Life is busy. I love seeing my kids succeed and, do better in school, do better in sports. And then, I also love scouting. I love to teach the youth to be a better person, to be a better partner in the community. And then at different events and things, I'll just see them grow up and keep doing better. So yeah, it's really what basically humbles me.
It's all about that soapbox derby, man.
Oh, I'm telling you, I love it.
So I want you to think about the best boss or mentor you've ever had. What's the one thing that they said to you that you now find yourself repeating to your folks there in Evansville or St. Louis?
Yeah. So, always be supporting. So, we're all never perfect. But the thing that he does for me is, it's not a negative bash. It's always supporting. I'm trying to do my best, but we all make mistakes. So it's just like, he's very calm and, talks to me and helps me understand where my point of view was coming and kind of where my point of view should have been coming from. And, we just continually get better and better and better. And it's really formed me in the person that I am. And I am getting to the point to where I am now mentoring others. And I think back, what would he do? So it's always be supporting.
Yep, be supportive. Great advice. So this has been a really enlightening tour of the Gateway Connection. What would you say is one myth about storage trailers that you hope we can retire after this episode?
Well, trailers are not, or the semi-trailers are not just trailers that go up and down the road from coast to coast. They really are a flexible storage option. Like they are really a solution for the warehousing world. So I mean, they are not just the over the road big boxes running down the road.
Absolutely. For anyone listening who is kind of feeling the squeeze, what's the one thing they should do this week?
Look at your options and think outside of the box. Don't always look for the easy answer. Be innovative and find your different out of the box solutions.
And if they're in Evansville or St. Louis, they should call Meisler Trailer Rental, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. give Brian a call. You can also find him at www.warehouseonwheels.com. If you need the space in any one of those areas, Brian and his highly qualified team can help you out. Brian Cain, General Manager at Meisler Trailer Rentals, thank you for showing us the wow factor in the Midwest.
Thanks.
That's it for this week, guys. I'm Dr. Mark Mann, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Wow Factor.